say nullifiers, what comes to mind?
Najis.
Okay, najasa. Okay. What else? And what about najasa specifically?
So,
Like maybe a minor.
I'm sorry?
Like a minor impurity.
Okay.
As opposed to like
Like a minor impurity. What is a minor impurity?
could be like passing gas.
Passing gas. Right. So is the gas itself impure?
When it comes to me, yes.
The gas,
Get him!
the gas itself is not impure. It's just gas. I mean, because that would, it would cause a lot of problems. Because you have no control over gas, right?
A lot of times, yeah. Most of the time, you're
No, I'm saying like once gas is in the air,
yeah.
what do you do? Like at that point, what can you do to prevent? Like, would your prayer become invalid? You understand?
Not too bad.
So it is problematic with nonsense because obviously if somebody else smells it during the prayer, it's going to disturb the prayer. But will it invalidate the prayer?
No.
No, it won't.
angels go
I hope not. Like, so passing gas is one. What else?
Bleeding,
Bleeding. Okay.
throwing up.
Throwing up. Okay.
How about putting perfume on?
Oh, that depends if there's alcohol in the perfume, right? And is alcohol najis or not? That's the discussion.
Alcohol and perfume.
Yeah.
Dun dun dun.
So we need to actually look at the alcohol specifically.
I mean, most perfumes are at least 20% alcohol. So the question would be, is alcohol najis? And when I have najasa on my clothing, but is that going to nullify my wudu?
No.
No, it'll just prevent me from praying if it's on my clothing, right? But my wudu will still be intact.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys came up with passing gas, bleeding, like a prick,
No, excessively.
like excessive bleeding. Okay.
Like nose bleeding?
Like a nose. Okay, so ru'af is probably invalidated in Ḥanbali. It's probably something that's unique to the Ḥanbali, including vomiting also, which is unique to the eating camel's meat. You guys heard that one?
I heard of that.
Yeah, that's also unique to the Ḥanbali position.
That's
There's a hadith. That's why. But in general, when we talk about the things that nullify the wudu, the companions agreed on anything that comes from the two places of exit, right, from the body. Anything that comes out of those automatically invalidates your wudu. So, anything that is impure, that passes from deprived areas, this includes urine and feces, right, for sure. When urine and feces passes through these two areas, then your salah, then your wudu becomes invalidated, it becomes nullified. So, what about, you can pass stones and worms also, right? Stones are usually passed from the urinary tract, and worms from the digestive tract, right? And then both of these are considered to be pure.
Interesting.
Now, if you pass just usually though, when you're passing these, they're not being passed by themselves. Right? They're not being passed by themselves. They're usually passed with urine or with feces. And the second thing that's agreed on is sleeping, right? Sleeping or going comatose, one of the two. And the extra condition is that it has to be.
As far as if you're whether or not you're reclining or
Whether you're reclining.
yeah.
Right, so if you sleep laying down, this actually breaks your wudu, and there's a difference of opinion of falling asleep if you are sitting up. A lot of that has to do with consciousness, and a lot of that's not. So there are a number of things that are disagreed on. So, impure discharge in large or repulsive amounts, this is what we call blood, right? So, anything, and if you lose a lot of blood, then your wudu is considered to have been invalidated. And this is something that the Ahnaf and the Ḥanbalis agree on. The Maliki and the Shafi'iyya, they say no. Right? So they say, basically, these are the only two things that will break your wudu. Anything else that happens, any type of anything that comes out of the body, even in excess, it would not actually invalidate your wudu. And then sleeping, sitting, or standing, this is the Hanafi opinion that you will not invalidate your wudu. You will not invalidate your wudu, including legs. So these again are also part of the madhāhib. So touching the penis, this is considered to be in the Hanafis something that will break your wudu. Some of them differentiate between it being a lustful or a regular touch, like if you're cleaning yourself, for example. Skin to skin, touching the opposite gender. So actually touching the opposite gender physically without a divider. Like, if you're wearing gloves or she's wearing gloves, then this would not invalidate your wudu. If it is lustful, according to the Ahnaf, then it would break your wudu. Your wudu would still be valid according to Ibn Taymiyyah. Apostasy. If an individual leaves Islam, he breaks his wudu. Washing the dead. This is again something that is unique to the Ḥanbalis. If an individual washes the dead, then he has to be ghusl. And finally, like we said, eating camel meat, and this is something that is very specific and very unique to the Ḥanbali. Any questions on these 8?
Case of the camel meat in the hadith.
So the Prophet ﷺ, there's actually an order where he says, when any of you eats camel meat, then he should go and make wudu. You have other hadith that talk about rinsing your mouth out also after you eat some desim, after you either eat fat or drink anything that has fat in it, whether it be meat or whether it be milk. The Prophet ﷺ ordered rinsing out the mouth. So whether did he mention it out of recommendation or did he mention it out of obligation? According to the Ḥanbalis, out of obligation. It is something that actually would break it.
What type of hadith is it?
It's fine. But the thing is, when the Prophet ﷺ orders us with something, right? When he orders us with something, the order can be taken one of 2 ways. If the Prophet ﷺ says, do this, what does he mean?
It could be an order.
I mean, they're both orders, right? But what type of order?
Suggestion.
A suggestion, that's one. And
Something that's
Highly-
obligatory.
an obligation, right? These are the only 2, right? Either it's going to be suggested or it's going to be an obligation. So these are the 2 levels of a request from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You also have some things that are mubah, that's they're neither recommended nor obligatory. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he talks about إِذَا حَلَلْتُمْ فَاصْطَادُوا, and when you come out of Umrah, then hunt. But over here it's more for permission and not for recommendation or obligation. So there are major nullifiers. You have minor nullifiers, which does what? And a major nullifier, which does what?
Major versus minor.
Yeah.
Major, which requires a ghusl.
That's the major difference, right? So a minor invalidator would require wudu, and major invalidation would require ghusl. And there are 5 in the method. Menstrual bleeding, postpartum bleeding. You guys know the difference between the 2?
I don't get into that.
Alright, menstrual, this is like a monthly cycle, and postpartum, this is after birth. For this, there's a difference of opinion on the maximum days that it can be. Most of the madhāhib say it's 40 days. That's the maximum it can be. There is no minimum amount. Intercourse, ejaculation, and apostasy. So the 2 that are shared are apostasy between the major and the minor, but the correct opinion in the madhāhib is that it is a major invalidator. It is not a minor invalidator.
Apostasy.
Apostasy. Like when a person leaves Islam.
Yeah.
I mean, it's yeah. It is what it is. Man.
Yeah, it's like.
You have bigger problems than wudu.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, I really don't think the person who left Islam is worried about whether he still has his wudu or not. Right? We're worried about his Islam. So, are there any questions on any of these? So,
Okay.
How is intercourse defined? Intercourse is when the 2 private areas meet, right? That is intercourse. Even just touching, right? Even just touching, even if there's no penetration, that is enough to obligate ghusl. And obviously, ejaculation can happen. It can happen in the form of a wet dream. It can happen because of masturbation. It can happen because of divorce. So, whenever we had talked about this before, if I'm certain about something or I'm doubtful about something in Islam, I always follow
Say it again.
What you're certain about.
what I'm certain about. So, if I have to balance between certainty and doubt, I'm always going to lean toward certainty, right? And this is a maxim within Islamic law. So the things that require wudu, there is a difference of opinion on things that require wudu. One of them is agreed on, that there is no difference of opinion, which is the salah, which is the prayer, right? Now there is a difference of opinion concerning the funeral prayers and the different types of prostration. So there are different types of sajda that we do, sajda to shukr and sajda to tilawa, right? So sajda to shukr is when I'm thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and I want to do a sajda. And the second one is sajda tilawa when I'm reciting the Quran and a place of sajda comes in, a place of prostration comes in, then I would prostrate at that point. Tawaf and touching the mushaf. So here, there's a difference of opinion. And the reason that these are included in this is because they either share elements with the prayer, right? They share elements with the prayer in name or in action. So what is unique about the funeral prayer?
It has no reports.
Right, there's no ruku or there's no sujood, right? But it is still called salat al-janazah, right? It's still called the funeral prayer. The prostrations, these obviously they share a part of the prayer, which is why they are an obligation to. Again, this is in the madhāhib that require wudu. Like tawaf. Big difference of opinion. Does tawaf require wudu or not? Yes.
Take gratitude.
It's just a shukr.
Okay.
Like when you're happy about something, Allah gives you something, you fall into sajda. Like tawaf. Difference of opinion amongst the scholars on whether wudu is required for tawaf. The only thing that is agreed on is making the two rak'ah after the tawaf. This is something that you need wudu for, but the tawaf itself, there is a difference of opinion. And lastly, touching the mushaf. Big difference of opinion. The mushaf is the Quran, right? Is the actual book itself. The covers are not considered parts of the book itself, right? The actual covers you can touch without wudu. You cannot touch the Arabic letters. There are a number of hadith that indicate that. Some people use the verses, but the verses have that nobody touches it except those who are pure. That has to do with the angels, and it's talking about the Lawh al-Mahfuz. It's talking about the preserved tablet. It's not talking about the Quran. Over here, Ibn Qudama, he starts talking about certain etiquettes on how to deal with the mushaf, to actually learn how to, or he teaches us how to deal with the book itself. He mentions things that are haram to do with it, and he mentions things that are makruh that have to do with it. What do you guys think about these? What is unique about them? And what do you think about them? And why do you think he categorized them the way he did?
Like for respect
Disrespect.
for the
That's what
sanctity
this
of it.
whole thing revolves around,
Yeah.
right? It revolves around respecting and disrespecting the Muslim. So, all of these on the left, when he says they're actually haram, that a person will have sin if he does these. Versus these. What do you guys think is, what is the line that he drew here?
Good question.
Over here, what is the distinguishing factor? Or what are the things that you feel distinguish between what's haram and what's halal?
The action, the one
Okay.
that's it's obviously disrespectful.
One is more symbolic, maybe.
Okay, well, like over here, like 1 and 2. You don't use it as a pillow and don't lean or rest or recline on it. Why is that?
Because it has the name of Allah. Don't disrespect it.
Because it shows laziness.
Okay.
It's
Now, I want you guys to really think. What would you, if you could think of a few from the top of your head, what would you think would be haram to do with the mushaf?
Like
Throw it away.
Throw it on the ground, or throw it away. Okay.
Yeah. Both the impurities would.
Exposing it to impurity. Absolutely.
Do not
Change words.
lean, recline on it.
Change, like Like crossing words out and writing them in?
No, like changing like some ayahs.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, you know, like some of the verses you're like, I don't know this one. Huh?
Can you annotate on it?
That's a good question. If I want to make notes, can I make notes in my own stuff?
Yeah.
So some of the things that you guys are sharing, some of the things that you guys are talking about, they're really important to understand. And what do you think defines that? What defines disrespect?
Culture plays a factor. Yeah.
Right? So how do we determine these and how do he determine these? They're cultural differences.
Yeah.
That's all it is. You know, what they saw in their culture at this time to be disrespectful. Because you actually don't have anything during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Did they have a book during that time? Huh?
No, not in book form. No.
No, they didn't.
No.
So annotating would be okay.
I'm sorry?
Annotating on the Quran would be okay.
What do you guys think?
Say it again.
Throwing?
Like taking notes in my Quran.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I've done it before actually.
That wouldn't be problematic in and of itself. Why? Because what is the reason you're doing it?
To understand.
For
Right,
study.
you're trying to understand it, you're
Yeah.
trying to make notes of where you left off, you know, and there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. It's completely fine. There's no issue with that, and if you're doing it to disrespect, that's where it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
And that's where it becomes an issue. So over here, anything to use it as a way to rest on or to recline on, this is something that would be like in the Qudama's culture, something that's completely unacceptable. But if you look at these things, some of these might not even be a problem in our culture today,
No. True.
right?
Yeah.
So if I have my back to the Quran, I don't think this will be a big issue.
Mm-mm.
Feet toward it, it depends.
It depends. Like I wouldn't be having it right on the floor.
Like if I had it in front of, no,
Yeah.
that's a very good point.
Yeah.
Like if I had it in the floor in front of me and I had my feet out toward it,
Yeah.
that's disrespectful. Like
Yeah.
what if there's a bookshelf that's like where Miguel is right now? There's
Yeah.
a bookshelf there that has Qurans on it,
True.
and my feet are facing. Would that be considered disrespectful?
No.
No, it would. So again, this is something that's culturally defined. And is there like a fixed space? Like okay, if you're 3 feet away, then it's disrespectful. If you're 6, it's not. No,
No.
it's just something, you know, it's conceptually how people perceive it and how they do it.
Mhm.
Putting it on the ground without purpose.
Without purpose,
Yeah.
I just.
So what is the purpose? I'm sitting reading, a sajda tilawa comes, I put it down, I make sajda and I get back up. I'm sitting down, I put it to the side, and I make sajda, I get back up, I pick it up and I continue reading.
Yeah.
Was that problematic?
No.
It's kind of tough because in my mind I'm thinking like, I'm curious to know why he says it's haram. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Does that make
So
sense?
it's just a line of disrespect. I mean, it's over here, if you look at 3 and 4, these are clear to us.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because this is something that they agree on, that's not just disrespectful, it's what? It's insulting.
It also, yes. It could-
Right? So over here, these two things, to him, in his culture, these would actually be considered.
Insulting.
Insulting.
Yeah.
Right? So, but for us, maybe if the Quran's right in front of us and we put our feet next to it, we might actually put this into that category. Right?
Yeah.
Because we're like, no, why are you doing that? That's actually insulting.
True.
So again, these things they're always culturally defined. So do you guys understand putting it on the ground without purpose? Another cultural thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure what that's about.
I'm sorry?
Putting it on the ground without purpose? Like what?
Why are you putting it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're being disrespectful, right? So the thing is, or if you have there's a difference between throwing it and there's a difference between placing it.
Huh.
A person who's throwing it, why are they doing it? Because they intend to be insulting. But a person who's placing it, maybe he has some reason, maybe he's moving it out of the way, maybe, whatever the case might be, or he's putting it there temporarily because he wants to put it somewhere else, whatever the case might be, right? Or he's treating it like a book, right? He's not disrespecting it, but he's treating it like a book and he's putting it on the ground just like he would any other book. But another question then, putting the Quran, same situation, I'm on the ground, I'm reading, I put it down, I make sajda, and I sit back up and I grab it and I continue reading. What if I put it face down?
The Quran.
I think it's
The
okay.
pages?
Huh? The other way is with the binder side down, right? With the cover side down. I'm doing the same thing, but I put it facing down.
That's not good.
Right? What made you say that?
Well, because previously about touching the
A lot of this is based on our personal perception of it, right? Like for me personally, putting the Quran face down is like super insulting. Like you're actually allowing the pages to touch the floor
Uh,
versus a cover,
I see what you're saying. I see what
right?
you're saying.
But again, that's my personal,
Uh,
that's my personal standard. Not everybody would agree with that. Not everybody would hold the same standard, right? If I can sit on the floor and I can put my head on the floor, I'm not being disrespectful by putting the floor on the floor. Again, it depends. Everybody's gonna have their own logic and their own understanding of it. So putting it on the ground, using it as ornamentation. What is he talking about here?
just like a little necklace or crown thingy or
Decorative?
decoration.
Putting like
shelf.
right. What is it?
Putting
Like in the
the
masajid
the door.
Umdah. You know what I mean? Like you put the masajid for Allah. You put this verse across, the wall.
Like around Al-Aqsa.
So the Kaaba.
No.
The Kaaba.
Yeah.
The masajid, right? And Allah's name is like all around the or all around the dome.
The dome, yeah. What do you say about that?
You guys tell me. What do you think?
Personally, it strikes me as beautiful.
Okay.
It doesn't. It doesn't strike me as being problematic personally.
I mean, if it's not on the floor, then what's the point? If it's
Yeah.
painted on the wall, and you want to remove it, you can always paint over it, right?
Maybe that's
I like
what
it.
you should
Yeah,
consider.
Like a youth lounge.
Yeah, I know.
Or even the masjid.
Yeah. Or maybe because you can remove it.
Okay, but why do they do it? Why do they do it in the first place?
To beautify the place.
All right, some people they do it to beautify. What are some other reasons you can think of? I've seen
Remind
you've seen
you.
it on houses
Yeah.
too.
To read
To
it.
protect themselves, like from me.
Oh, like maybe some like kind of like what you're alluding to, like protecting yourself as
Yeah,
in
like
this
sticking
verse.
a verse on the door just to
Maybe
protect
like
yourself from like
put
shaitan or something.
Yeah.
Oh, what did you say? To protect yourself.
Like superstition.
No. That's absolutely right.
I have one door.
I have 3. قل هو الله أحد الله الناس.
I don't stickers out.
Right. So some of the reasons that they use it is for protection. Right. They use it for blessing. Huh? Like these are some of the reasons that you would actually put it up.
So what if someone's like, oh, I'm gonna tattoo
What if I get a tattoo of a verse on my arm?
I don't think.
Depending on what madhāhib
Unless
you
Unless it's copyrighted.
subscribe.
It depends on the madhāhib you follow.
Is it
Is
tattoos not just?
Yes.
All of our madhabs, don't they say you're not allowed to get tattoos?
So using it as an ornamentation.
Don't trust me with the mouth, we'll follow that one.
Get a heart and say, "Oh, Allah."
We're not there yet. Yeah, when we get to tattoos, we'll talk about it. Guys, always jumping the gun. So, if I get a tattoo of like an ayah wrapped around my arm, why would that be a problem? No, seriously.
You go everywhere, I mean, like.
Right, like there's an element of disrespect there because you're taking those same verses into the bathroom, right? If you're doing something haram,
Yeah.
those same verses on your arm, you know what I mean?
We got that again. What's going on? SubhanAllah. Is there like a meeting, like a private meeting or something, or
Check.
we can
log
find out
the
what's
Zoom and
live.
check the scheduled meeting, you
Yeah.
can see.
Or just
There's nothing.
just send a new meeting link to the people. Yes.
But the problem is somebody keeps signing into the account,
Yeah.
which is extremely frustrating. But anyway, using it as an ornamentation. So you know what I mean? There's a number of problems. Forget tattooing in and of itself as a ruling right now, but why would you not want somebody to get that done? In addition, if you see it to be haram, that is haram.
Like outside from shifting position.
No, outside of again, I don't want to talk about tattoos itself. I'm talking about why would you not get verses?
On yourself or
Yeah.
anywhere?
No, on yourself. Like, why would you not get a tattoo? Like I said, you take it into places where sometimes it's inappropriate. You have verses literally on your arm, like while you might be doing something haram or inappropriate. So these are the type of things that Allah they definitely should be avoided. But do you understand how these things were defined? Because it's not like you have during the time of the Prophet ﷺ where he said, okay, when you have a mushaf, this is what you need to do, and this is how you need to deal with
True.
it. You
Exactly.
don't have any of those things.
Exactly.
Why?
Because they weren't there.
Because it never existed in the first place. It just wasn't there. So all of those things were defined by the culture. So these are the things that obligate ghusl. These are the things that obligate ghusl. And how is this different from the list that we had before. Or is it not? Or is it the same?
It's the same.
It's
Except
the
for
same.
number 6, where that means leaving Islam.
Right, so the things, basically you have major janaba, things that break your wudu. Not just break your wudu, but they break your wudu to the point where you have to make ghusl. Over here, these are the things that obligate ghusl after you do them. So it's not very different, right? It's not very different. A lot of the things are shared. There isn't anything here that's really different from the previous one.
Would number 1 and 3 be the same?
1 and 3, no.
Or is it the same?
So this is a bit problematic within because it's from the Ḥanbali madhāhib. Even after a person finishes ejaculating, right, and he goes and he takes a shower, it can still descend.
Yeah, true.
Right. This is afterward.
Yeah.
This is after intercourse is complete.
After effect.
Like an after effect. So they would say that even that you have to go make ghusl.
Interesting.
Dang. Good drip.
So if an individual is in a state of janaba, right? So all of these things. If a person is in a state of janaba, these are the things that you cannot do, and these are generally agreed upon by the four madhāhib. Praying. You cannot pray in a state of janaba. You cannot make tawaf in a state of janaba. You cannot touch the mushaf, and again, the mushaf is the actual pages with the Arabic on them. You cannot recite the Quran while you are in a state of janaba. You cannot stay in the masjid. You cannot make itikaf in the state of janaba. Any questions on any of these?
Yeah, when you say reciting the Quran, what if you're reading like Ayatul Kursi?
Ayatul Kursi, even part of an ayah. Sometimes, some of them, they said even if it's part of an ayah, if it's enough to distinguish the ayah. Does that make
So
sense?
you can't read it for protection if you're,
I'm sorry?
you can't like read it for protection if you're in the state of janaba?
If you're in a state of janaba, no, you cannot. Well, there's a difference of opinion. But in general, you cannot. You cannot recite Quran. You can't recite it with the tongue. Does that make sense? You can't recite it with your tongue, but you can recite the verses in your heart. So, and what distinguishes a verse, and how do you describe a verse? If it's enough, if I listen to it, I would understand that it is a portion of a verse. Because Arabic is shared, right? So the Arabic that we speak is Arabic that will be in the Quran also. But if what I'm saying is not a verse, and I don't intend a verse by it, then it's fine. There's no issue with that. The moment that I intend a verse, or it's distinguished that it is a verse, at that point I cannot recite that. Alright? And staying in the masjid, passing through is acceptable. If there's a shortcut, or if, like for example, this Islamic center, not the entirety of it is a prayer area, right? So if you want to get across, for example, to go get some coffee, then you can.
That makes sense. You can go to this courtyard where we play
Yeah,
basketball.
you would go pass through the courtyard, or even through the back of Salah, right? To get to wherever you have to do. Because it's a shortcut, you don't want to have to go all the way around, and that's fine.
But isn't the musalla the place part of the masjid?
Musalla is the masjid, right? Technically, like this right here, this is part of the building, but is it part of the quote-unquote masjid? No. So the rulings don't apply here. What does that mean? I can't make, if I make itikaf here, does it count?
No.
No. Why?
Because that's the masjid.
Because it's not, technically it's not the masjid. Just like the bathroom. Bathroom is not part of the masjid. I can't go and pray in there. I can't make itikaf in there. So you have separate spaces within the building, but not all of them are going to be considered the masjid itself. Okay?
What if somebody's like leading prayer in the courtyard and you pray in a part that's not the masjid?
You're following the imam. That's different.
So that's allowed.
So as long as the rows are extended, then you're considered to be praying behind the imam. But another issue, if I come in and I sit down here, do I need to make my 2 rak'ah?
No,
No. Why?
because it's not the masjid.
Because it's not the masjid.
Are there any exceptions to like making a ghusl before praying? Like maybe let's say if you're in a special situation where you don't have access to water, like and you need to
You
pray.
can do tayammum.
You do tayammum.
But okay, with ghusl too.
Yeah. So tayammum replaces, it'll be the next class inshallah. But tayammum effectively replaces both ghusl and wudu. Alright? But you know, when do you do wudu again, or when does ghusl become obligated again? Inshallah, like I said, we'll talk about it next class. So how do you make ghusl? I call this the minimal ghusl, meaning that this is all you have to do and your ghusl will be sound, right? You need to make intention, you mention Allah, you wash the entire body, you rinse your mouth and your nose. Rubbing is a uniquely Maliki position. This is not part of the method. This is not the Hanabila do not obligate this. So basically what you have to do, you have to have the intention, you walk in, you say Bismillah, you pour water over yourself, you rinse out your mouth and your nose, you're done. Within 30 seconds you will have your ghusl.
If you don't say Bismillah, it doesn't count.
The later Hanabila don't obligate it. The later Hanabila don't obligate it. The earlier Hanabila, they do make it an obligation. But it's a non-conditional one. It's one of the questions that we have on the quiz, right? It's a non-conditional obligation, meaning, what does that mean?
It's not, you don't have to do it.
Yes and no. Meaning that if I remember while I'm making wudu, I have to start the wudu again. If I remember after the wudu is over, then I'm good. Yeah, it's good. It is what it is. So, technically you only need to do these three things, right? You need to have the intention. And what does your intention have to be? It could be to purify yourself, or that you're going to pray, right? It doesn't have to be a very specific intention for ghusl. Your intention could be that I'm going to pray Dhuhr, or I'm going to pray Fajr, or I'm going to pray whatever, and you walk into the shower. Like I said, water's done. You just walk out. Your whole body's wet, and you rinse your mouth and your nose out. This is a ghusl. Versus the complete ghusl. So the complete ghusl, obviously, there are more points that are involved, including making intention, mentioning Allah, which is shared. Rubbing is part of the sunnah, right? So this is all part of the complete ghusl. When I mean complete ghusl, meaning that this is sunnah. Doing all of these things is sunnah, but they are not necessary for your ghusl to be correct. Washing your hands, pouring water onto the left and the right, cleaning your private areas, striking the wall. Then he would make, okay, why did he strike the wall? We'll talk about that. Then he would make wudu, then he would wash the entire body, then he would step away and wash his feet. What's going on here? Why is the Prophet painting the wall?
To clean your hands?
To clean his hands, I said. Good. There's no soap. Yeah, you guys understand? There's no soap. And if you're cleaning look at the order. Look at 6 and 7.
Right after cleaning.
Right after cleaning your body. What is he doing? He's hitting the wall. He's touching the wall. Why? To wipe off whatever remnants there are off of him. Then, after that, what we do? Then he would make the regular wudu. Then he would wash his entire body. And then he would step away from the place that he was making ghusl in. Why?
Because there's najasa coming off of you in the water.
Right, so because the water gathered there. Right? Wherever he was washing himself, that's where the water gathered. And then he would step away.
But our showers, we don't have to worry about those things.
Why?
Like water gathering. Because there's a drain.
Because there's a drain. That you're right. So is it sunnah to wash my feet in the sink when I step out? Yes and no. I mean, if I just want to imitate the Prophet ﷺ because that's what he did, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But is it, again, going back, is it necessary? It is not. It is not. This is just a sunnah. I don't mean just a sunnah, but it is a sunnah. Any questions on this?
This is pour water onto the left.
So basically what he would do, how would he wash his hands? He would wash his hands using his left hand. He would pick up the container with his left hand. Because there wasn't a shower, right? Like, he had a basin of water, and he would use that to pour it onto his hands.
So
Pour it up.
what it means is using the left for water.
Yeah.
And this order is a complete ghusl.
This is a complete ghusl.
And this is agreed upon?
Yeah, yes. Again, this is sunnah. It's sunnah, like, which one is a condition and which one is not. This is where you'll find differences. But in the general description of the ghusl, there's an agreement.
And then I was taught when I was taught ghusl, rubbing right side and then left side.
Yeah. So you start with the right side, right? Even in wudu, you start with the right side. So when you wash the entire body, you would start with the right side, and then you would do the left side. Okay? Any other questions on this? So, what if a person has braided hair? What are they supposed to do?
They don't have to undo their hair, just the roots.
Alright, who doesn't have to undo their hair?
Women?
Women?
Which women?
slave girl?
Women with
With
puberty?
hijab?
If you
No.
slaves?
Why are they thinking? Why are they taking a shower with a hijab on?
Oh, hijab on? I mean, don't you have hijab
I
on?
mean, listen. No comment. So, basically, a woman who is coming out of her cycle, or who has just completed postpartum bleeding, she is obligated to open her braids. Okay? She's obligated to open her braids. But if a woman is in a state of janaba, sexual impurity, she does not have to open her braids.
Well, what if with your braids on, you can get your entire hair wet?
So if you can get your scalp wet, then that's fine. Because the type of braids that they had, they actually started higher. They started a little bit higher, and not just that. When they braided, they would use like duhan and wax to
Oh, yeah.
actually keep their hair fixed. So what would happen is when you do it like that, it would get fixated in the water.
Gorilla glue?
I'm sorry.
Gorilla
glue. Oh, man.
Just paper.
Oh, it's for the lady.
That's what
I
we're
mean,
loving.
I feel kind of bad, but not really. So basically, the water has to penetrate, and this is what we mean about opening the braids. So do you have to open your braids if the water can penetrate the entirety of your scalp? No, because the purpose is that the water penetrate the scalp and all of the hair, right? So that's the purpose in ghusl. In wudu is different, right? Whether part of your hair gets wet or some of it, you'll have a difference of opinion, but that's not the idea, right? The idea for ghusl is that not only your entirety of your scalp get wet, but your hair also get wet. Why is it easier for janaba? How come you don't have to open your braids? I mean, here, how come you have to open your braids for janaba, but you don't have to open them for the menstrual, like when you come out of your menstrual cycle?
Because the type of injury?
I'm sorry?
The act?
Well, what about that?
It's more impure? Like,
Okay. It's a higher level of impurity. What else? I mean, what is my choice, right? Yes or no?
What is your choice in terms of?
Janaba. Like sexual
Oh,
impurity.
I see what you're saying.
Right?
I see what you're saying.
Like sexual
One
impurity-
is your choice.
Right? Sexual
Yeah.
impurity is a choice. In
Mhm.
which, if you decide to engage, then you have to open your hair. Versus menstrual cycle and postpartum bleeding, this is something that's natural, right?
Voluntary.
You have no control over that.
True.
And it's for a longer period. There's periods of time that are
Yeah.
associated with it. Right? With janaba, there's no window that's there. There's no window of timing that's there, but for the cycle, for the menstrual cycle and the postpartum bleeding, there is a time frame that's there. Having multiple intentions. If I have intention to make ghusl from janaba and for Jumu'ah, for example. Or if I'm making it one for cleanliness and to pray. Is it okay to have those multiple intentions? If I make intention for wudu while making ghusl, is that okay?
No.
Make it,
do it
say it
before.
again?
Gee, you're out. If I walk into the shower and I make intention only for wudu, and I make ghusl physically, which one counts?
Your
Wudu.
My wudu would count, not my ghusl.
Hmm.
What if I have intention for ghusl and I make wudu? And I fulfill the ghusl, right? Because when I make wudu in the shower, what have I effectively done? Effectively,
Yeah.
I've made ghusl. Will that ghusl count? I mean, will that wudu count? I didn't need ghusl, but I had intention for ghusl. And I needed to make wudu. Am I covered?
Yeah.
Yes, I am. Right, ghusl is a higher level. So if I do anything under the umbrella of ghusl, then my wudu would also count. Like in the opposite, does the opposite hold true?
no.
No, it doesn't. These are the recommended times for what? For ghusl. These are all the recommended times for ghusl. And there are three major categories: the different prayers, hajj-related, and other scenarios.
What is kusuf?
Ghusl.
Kusuf. What is it?
Which one?
Prayers number 3.
Oh, kusuf. Kusuf is the eclipse prayer,
Ah.
and whether it can be solar or lunar.
Why do you have to do ghusl for that?
These are recommended times,
Um,
right?
And for the other scenarios, how do you do ghusl while you're in a coma?
When you wake up.
Oh.
So over here, when you come out of the coma, if you become mentally sound, right, then you have to make ghusl. Non-menstrual bleeding, meaning if you have bleeding, this is called istihada, right? If you have bleeding between your cycle is complete, but you're still bleeding, it's recommended. It's not, again, no recommended states, these are not obligations. I was like, if you're walking, if you're walking, it's not really dead, right? Like, but I have like 2 minutes for questions. I don't think. Yeah, we're gonna have to talk about recommended states next.